In my previous life, Shinrue borrowed my jade pendant, appeared on a televised antique appraisal, and was hailed as the long-lost daughter of the wealthy Su family. I was its true owner, yet her followers harassed me until I died. After returning to the past, I placed the pendant in her hands myself. "Take good care of it," I said. She heard only generosity. She never guessed that the pendant was a decoy created by my ancestors to drain an enemy's luck. The longer she wore it, the more misfortune it would draw toward her. While she climbed into the Su family's glittering world, my own family prospered, and members of my birth family finally found me through the phoenix-shaped mark on my wrist. When Shinrue returned in disgrace, I showed her the second pendant hidden beneath my collar. "This is the true family heirloom," I told her. "The one you took was meant for an enemy." I snapped my eyes open. My heart was still pounding wildly, as if it would shatter my ribcage. Cold sweat had soaked through my pajamas, clinging unpleasantly to my back. The suffocating feeling was so real. In front of me was not the icy river water, not those crazed, screaming faces, and not Shinrue's smug, venomous expression. Only my familiar little room. Morning light filtered through the pale yellow curtains, and my unfinished homework was still spread out on the desk. The calendar on the wall showed August 17th, the day everything had begun. I was back. Back on the day the tragedy began. Back on the day Shinrue came to borrow my family's heirloom phoenix jade pendant. I pinched my arm hard. A sharp pain shot through me. It wasn't a dream. I had really been reborn. Ecstasy and a surge of profound bitterness rushed up my nose at once, and my eyes instantly burned with heat. In my last life, I was a complete fool. I treated Shinrue, that viper of a woman, as my best friend. I confided in her wholeheartedly, holding nothing back. That jade pendant of mine, said to have been passed down through my family for generations, she had seen it once by chance and shown tremendous interest. She hinted again and again that she wanted to borrow it for a few days. I was foolish back then, though I felt that a family heirloom shouldn't be lent out. I couldn't withstand her persistent coaxing. And on this very day, I relented. Then came utter ruin. She wore my pendant to a nationally sensational treasure appraisal and family reunion TV show. The pendant was recognized by the wealthy Su family as the token of their long-lost daughter. Shinrue transformed overnight from an ordinary girl into the true heiress of a wealthy clan. Gloriously celebrated. And me? I, the true owner of the pendant, became in her words a scheming, despicable person who envied her wealth and tried to falsely claim the pendant. Her fans, those fanatical supporters, attacked me with the most vicious language. They doxed my information. They splashed paint on my front door. They sent me terror packages. My parents were so enraged they fell gravely ill. In the end, in a dark alley, I was dragged into a car by several masked men and sunk to the bottom of an icy river. The taste of drowning, it was so cold. Even colder than the river water was Shinrue's mocking, icy gaze as she stood on the shore. She said, "And Jean, your things are mine now. And your life, you deserved it." Hatred coiled around my heart like vines, squeezing until I could barely breathe. But now, it was different. Heaven had given me a second chance. Shinrue, the Su family. What you owe me, I will make you repay, with interest. I took a deep breath, suppressed the churning emotions, and walked to the dressing table. The girl in the mirror was 17 or 18, her complexion somewhat pale, but her eyes were no longer the naive innocence of the past. Within them burned a cold, eerie flame. I pulled open the bottom drawer, where a small sandalwood box lay quietly. I opened the box, and a gentle, lustrous glow flowed forth. The phoenix jade pendant lay peacefully on the velvet lining. The jade was fine and smooth, the carved phoenix so lifelike it seemed ready to spread its wings and soar at any moment. This was it, the one that in my last life had confirmed Shinrue as the Su family's daughter. How ridiculous. I stroked the pendant, the familiar warmth meeting my fingertips. Yet in my mind, another deeper, more hidden memory surfaced. It belonged to the true legacy of my family. The ancestors were not ordinary jade artisans. They were mystics who inscribed ritual sigils into stone. This phoenix jade pendant was no simple token. Within it was an intricate ancient curse designed to drain its wearer's luck. The longer it is worn, the deeper the connection with bloodline, the stronger the effect. It could indeed guide blood relatives to come searching. But the purpose of their coming was likely not reunion, but rather to serve as a vessel to bear the family's misfortune, or a sacrifice. The Su family. I curled my lips into a cold smile. If they were so desperate to find the daughter recognized by the pendant, was family affection truly their motive? My mother's voice came from outside the door, and Jean, are you awake? Shinrue is here to see you. Here she comes. I closed the box, all emotions in my eyes sinking to the bottom, leaving only calm. Even, with just the right touch of just woken drowsiness. Coming. I responded, picked up the box, and walked out of the room. Shinrue was sitting on the sofa in the living room, chatting with my mother. She had dressed up specially today, wearing a white dress, looking pure and innocent. When she saw me, she immediately raised a sweet smile, and Jean, you're up. But her gaze involuntarily stuck to the rosewood box in my hand. Inside it was barely concealed longing and greed. I sneered inwardly. Yet on the surface, I showed hesitation and reluctance. I walked over slowly, placed the box on the table, and didn't open it right away. Shinrue, you're here so early. Shinrue leaned in close, warmly linking her arm through mine, her voice growing even softer, and Jean, I dreamed of that jade pendant last night, it's really so beautiful, just lend it to me for a few days, just a few days. I promise to return it to you in perfect condition. She shook my arm, coaxing me just like she had countless times before. In my past life, I was fooled by her act. My heart softened, and I agreed. Then, I stepped into hell. Now. I looked at her expectant eyes, my heart ice cold. Acting? Who can't do that? I gently pushed her hand away and sighed, my expression conflicted. Shinrue, it's not that I don't want to lend it to you. This is after all a family heirloom. If my parents found out I casually lent it to someone, they'd be upset. Shinrue's smile froze for a moment, then her eyes welled up as if she was about to cry, and Jean, aren't we best friends? When have I ever damaged your things? I just really love it, and I want to wear it to a gathering next week. A gathering? That would be the antique appraisal and family reunion show that decided her fate, and mine. I knew it all too well. But I still hesitated, my fingers unconsciously picking at the edge of the box. Shinrue grew a bit anxious, her tone carrying a hint of displeasure, and Jean, do you really not trust me? It's just a jade pendant, it's not like I'm going to eat it. Are we still best friends or not? See, there it was, emotional blackmail. I lowered my eyelashes and stayed silent for a few seconds. As if making a final internal struggle. Then, I suddenly lifted my head, as if I had made an enormous decision. Fine. I picked up the rosewood box and solemnly handed it to her. "It's yours." Shinrue froze, her eyes instantly widening in disbelief as she stared at me. Giving it to me? Even my mother beside us looked over in surprise, and Jean. I shot my mother a reassuring glance, then nodded firmly at Shinrue, forcing a sincere smile tinged with the pain of parting with something precious. "Yes, it's yours. We're best friends after all. Since you like it, I'll give it to you." I took a deep breath, as if giving a most solemn instruction. "But you have to promise me, take good care of it. Whatever you do, don't lose it." Shinrue's ecstasy was written all over her face. She almost snatched the box from me and hugged it tightly to her chest. Afraid I might change my mind. Of course. And Jean, you're the best. Thank you. I love you so much." She was so excited her face turned red, and she was babbling incoherently. Watching her gleeful, pathetic display, I could barely suppress the cold sneer rising in my heart. "You fool. Do you know what you just took? It's an invitation to the clouds, and a plunge straight into hell. It's poison that drains your fortune and gnaws away your future. Take it. Wear it well. Wear it tight." I smiled and watched her leave my house, clutching the box like a priceless treasure, almost skipping out the door. The sunlight fell on her white skirt, dazzling to the eyes. "Shinrue, enjoy this brief, good fortune of yours. I'll wait to watch you climb higher, only to fall harder. I'll wait to watch you and those so-called wealthy relatives be dragged into the abyss by this fortune-draining curse." I turned and went back inside, closing the door. Shutting out everything beyond. I leaned against the door panel and slowly raised my right hand. On the inside of my wrist, a faint red birthmark shaped like a phoenix spreading its wings flickered into view. This was the true mark of the In bloodline. Born from the same source as the fortune-stealing Jade Pendant, yet utterly opposite in nature. The phoenix Jade takes. This birthmark gives. It carries fortune and protects its bearer. When I was drowned in the river in my past life, this birthmark burned intensely. Now that I think about it, perhaps it was this very mark that granted me this chance at rebirth. As for that so-called family heirloom, I walked to the desk and, from the most hidden compartment, retrieved another nearly identical rosewood box. I opened it. Inside lay a jade pendant. Also phoenix-shaped, but upon closer inspection, this phoenix's tail feathers were longer and sharper, its eyes more spirited, and the jade itself more translucent and lustrous, with a faint light seeming to flow within. Subtly, it resonated with the birthmark on my wrist. This was the true heirloom of the In family. The true phoenix jade, imbued with protective power. As for the piece Shinrue took, it was merely a counterfeit crafted by our ancestors to deal with enemies, imbued with a fortune-draining curse. It was specifically designed as bait to lure the prey in. I gently closed the box containing the real jade pendant and tucked it close to my body. Outside the window, the sky was a clear blue, with white clouds drifting lazily. A storm was about to break. And I was ready. Shinrue, the Su family. The game has begun. Are you ready? I stood by the window, watching Shinrue's figure disappear at the end of the alley. The sunlight was blinding. The sandalwood box in my hand still held a trace of warmth. That was the box for the fake. The real one was already in my pocket, close to my chest. Mom walked over, looking at me with concern, and Jean, that jade pendant. Weren't you always very protective of it? How could you just? I turned around and took her hand. Her hand was a bit rough, marked by years of hard work. In my last life, it was these very hands that tried in vain to shield me from those malicious cameras when I was being cyberbullied, only to be shoved and fall, never recovering from the illness that followed. My heart ached. Mom, I softened my voice, it's just a jade pendant. It's not worth more than my friendship with Shinrue. Even saying it made me feel sick. But it had to be said. Mom sighed and patted my head, you child. You're just too sincere. But since you've given it, don't overthink it. She paused, lowering her voice. I always felt that Shinrue. She has a heavy heart. In the future, you should be more careful. I was stunned. So Mom had already sensed it. It's just that in my last life, I was blinded by so-called friendship and couldn't hear a word of it. I know, Mom. I leaned on her shoulder, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in ages. I will. This time, I would never let anyone hurt my family again. The next few days were calm. I went to school as usual, came home, and helped manage the small grocery store. As if nothing had changed. Only I knew that undercurrents were stirring. Shinrue took a few days off, supposedly visiting relatives. I knew she was actually attending the recording of the treasure appraisal show called Family Heirlooms. I waited patiently. Like a hunter waiting for prey to step into the trap. During that time, I used organizing the attic as an excuse and dug out some dusty old items from the house. At the bottom of a worn camphor wood chest, I found an ancient book with yellowed pages, bound with special thread. No title. Inside, it contained obscure classical Chinese and strange symbols, recording content about fortune and ritual sigils. There were also scattered descriptions of the pair of phoenix jade pendants and birthmarks. True phoenix guards, the fake steals fortune. Bloodline as the guide, the ritual seal forms itself. Misfortune rebounds, be cautious and wary. I treasured it like a gem. Every late night, I studied it carefully under the desk lamp. Combining it with the ancestral memories awakening in my mind, I gradually understood and absorbed this esoteric knowledge. I knew this would be my most important weapon on the road to revenge. A week later, explosive news broke. The latest episode of Family Heirlooms aired and instantly set the internet ablaze. An ordinary girl, Shinrue, had her ancestral phoenix jade pendant unanimously appraised as a genuine treasure by the on-site experts. Even more dramatic, the invited top-tier wealthy family, the chairman of the Su Group's wife, Yun Shu, lost her composure on the spot, rushed onto the stage, embraced Shinrue, and sobbed uncontrollably. The jade pendant was confirmed to be the identity token of the Su family's daughter, Su Ying, who had gone missing 18 years ago. Every major media outlet was dominated by this news. Cinderella turns out to be a real princess. The lost pearl of a wealthy family finally returns. The Su chairman's wife weeps with joy. Unveiling the priceless phoenix jade pendant. Shinrue's name became a household name overnight. Her tear-streaked photo wearing the jade pendant spread across the internet. Everyone was moved to tears by this dramatic reunion. They praised her as a lucky one favored by fate. I turned off the TV and expressionlessly cut the apple in my hand. The sharp blade of the fruit knife glinted coldly under the light. Lucky one. Yes, she is indeed lucky right now. Carried by the massive traffic and attention. Claimed by so-called wealthy parents. Enjoying everything that should never have belonged to her. But this fortune was stolen. It was built upon the pain and sacrifice of others. Moreover, beneath this fortune lies a bottomless abyss. The fortune-draining curse has already begun to take effect, hasn't it? Shun Shinrui, savor this fleeting glory while you can. Soon, you will learn what the price is. The next day at school, as expected, everyone was talking about Shun Shinrui. Oh my god. Shinrui is actually the Su family heiress. How dreamy. I always thought she had an extraordinary aura, and sure enough. That jade pendant she wears is so beautiful, I heard it's worth tens of millions. And Jean, aren't you closest to Shinrui? Did you know before? My classmates crowded around me, chattering away, their eyes full of envy and curiosity. I looked up, revealing a perfectly timed smile tinged with a hint of disappointment and reluctance. I didn't know either. She never told me. Everyone immediately showed expressions of understanding and sympathy. She must have wanted to surprise you. Yeah, you two are so close, she definitely won't forget you in the future. I lowered my head, pursed my lips, and said nothing more. Playing the role of someone hurt by her best friend's sudden secrecy, yet forcing herself to appear magnanimous. Inwardly, I sneered. Forget me? Of course she wouldn't. She would only do everything in her power to trample me, the true owner of that jade pendant, deep into the mud, never to rise again. Sure enough, when school let out in the afternoon, I was stopped by a few people at the school gate. Not students. They were dressed shabbily, with malicious looks in their eyes. The leader was a guy with dyed yellow hair, smoking a cigarette, sizing me up from head to toe. You're in Jean. My internal alarm bells rang loudly. I took half a step back, gripping my backpack straps tightly. Who are you? Who we are doesn't matter. The young man with dyed blonde hair blew out a smoke ring and stepped closer. What matters is that you stay away from Shun Shinrui. Understand? Miss Shun. She moves fast. Already so eager to eliminate the threat. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, forcing calm. Shun Shinrui and I are classmates and friends. Friends? The blonde man scoffed and reached out to shove my shoulder. What the hell are you to be friends with the Su family heiress? Don't flatter yourself. Get lost while you still can, or else. His hand hadn't even touched me when it was seized at the wrist by a stronger hand. Or else what? A cold voice rang out. I turned and saw a tall, slender boy standing nearby. He was wearing our school uniform, but his bearing was extraordinary, with sharp, handsome features and an air of cold aloofness that kept people at a distance. It was Jiang Jin. The big name at our school, good family background, handsome, top grades, but notoriously solitary and hard to approach. Why was he here? The blonde man clearly recognized Jiang Jin too. His face changed slightly, and he tried to pull his hand back, but it was held in a death grip. Jiang Jin. This isn't any of your business, is it? Jiang Jin didn't even move his gaze. His voice grew colder, scram. That was all he said. The blonde man and his companions exchanged glances, then retreated without another word. Before leaving, they shot me a vicious glare. I let out a breath of relief and thanked Jiang Jin. Thank you. Jiang Jin released his grip, his gaze landing on my face with a faint, barely perceptible scrutiny. Why were they causing trouble for you? I hesitated for a moment, then lowered my lashes. Maybe. It's because of Shun Shinrui. I didn't say more. Now wasn't the time. Jiang Jin didn't seem inclined to dig deeper either. He just said flatly, "After school from now on, walk where there are more people." With that, he turned and left, his back tall and aloof. I watched the direction he went, frowning slightly. Jiang Jin. Why did he help me? Was it a coincidence, or? I shook my head, pushing those questions aside for now. The priority was dealing with Shen Xinrui and the suppression that might have already begun behind her back. When I got home, I turned on my computer and logged into a social account I rarely used. Sure enough, I'd received quite a few private messages from strangers. Some were curious, asking about Shen Xinrui's past. Some were envious that I could be friends with her. But what dominated were malicious speculations and abuse. "You're the classmate trying to use Xinrui's newfound fame, aren't you? Have some shame. Heard you tried to snatch the Jade pendant but failed. How pathetic. Stay away from our princess, you ugly freak." Looking at these vile words, I actually smiled. It's begun. The same pattern as my previous life. First, use fans and paid trolls to stir up public opinion, painting me as a jealous, greedy, petty person who turned to hatred after failing to climb the social ladder. Laying the groundwork for the complete character assassination to come. "Shen Xinrui, is that all you've got?" I screenshotted the most vicious private messages and saved them. Then, I clicked on Shen Xinrui's newly verified account with its gold V badge. She had posted a selfie on the balcony of a luxury villa. The sun was bright, and she smiled with a look of pure happiness, the phoenix jade pendant hanging around her neck, conspicuously eye-catching. The caption read, "Grateful to fate for bringing me back to my family. Also grateful for all past experiences that helped me grow." Heart, below was a flood of blessings and praise. I stared at the photo, zoomed in, and carefully examined the details of the jade pendant. To the average eye, it shimmered with brilliance and exuded an air of nobility. But in my eyes, a faint, ominous wisp of black energy seemed to coil around the pendant. The fortune-draining curse was silently draining the wearer's luck. Channeling it back to the Su family connected to it. Or I closed the page and walked to the window. Night was deepening. The city's neon lights flickered, outlining a silhouette of prosperity. Beneath this prosperity, how much filth and scheming lay hidden. "Shen Xinrui, the Su family. Your feast is just beginning. And my revenge is just getting started. Just you wait." Days passed one after another. On the surface, all was calm, but beneath it, undercurrents surged. Shen Xinrui had completely become a figure of the moment. She occasionally returned to school, always surrounded by bodyguards and sycophantic classmates. Her attire was no longer that of the innocent schoolgirl she once was, all of it was the latest seasonal luxury items. The way she looked at me carried undisguised superiority and a hint of warning. As if to say, "Be smart, don't say anything you shouldn't." I merely averted my gaze each time, treating her like air. This seemed to provoke her. The anonymous harassment and online bullying began to escalate. Some even started doxing my family's information, our grocery store's address was exposed, and we occasionally received strange harassing calls. The worry on my parents' faces grew heavier. "And Jean, is it? Is it because of Xinrui's matter?" During dinner one evening, my mother finally couldn't help but ask. My father also set down his chopsticks, looking at me with concern. I picked up food for them with my chopsticks and said in a light tone, "Mom, Dad, don't overthink it. They're just some online trolls. They'll quiet down in a while. We stand upright and aren't afraid of crooked shadows." But my heart sank. Shinrue, you really did go down this path. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. I picked a weekend, using clearing my head as an excuse, and went to the old street near the city god temple. It was a place where all sorts of people mingled, every stripe and shade. Following the clues in my memory, I wound through twists and turns, walked into an unremarkable alley, and stopped in front of a traditional Chinese medicine clinic with a worn sign reading, "Healing the World." The storefront was tiny, the interior dim, thick with the heavy scent of herbs. An old man in a gray, worn long gown, wearing reading glasses, as skinny as a bamboo pole, was dozing in a reclining chair. Hearing the noise, he lifted his eyelids and swept his murky eyes over me. A consultation. Not for treatment. I stepped forward, took a small cloth-wrapped box from my backpack, and placed it on the counter in front of him. "Excuse me, I'd like to ask you to take a look at this." The old man slowly sat up and opened the cloth wrap, revealing the genuine Phoenix Jade pendant inside. He picked up a magnifying glass and examined the pendant closely. His fingers traced over the intricate patterns, and his gaze gradually sharpened. After a long moment, he set down the magnifying glass, looked at me, and his eyes held a bit more scrutiny. "Little girl, where did you get this?" "It's a family heirloom," I replied calmly. The old man stared at me, as if judging whether my words were true. "Do you know what this is?" "A little." I met his gaze. "That's why I came to find you, Diviner Xuanhu." Xuanhu was his nickname, and also the respectful title people in the underworld used for him. It was said he was skilled in some obscure ancient arts, especially good at reading things, not just authenticity, but fortune and misfortune, the flow of fate. It was a name I'd heard by chance before I died in my last life. He was the only person I could think of now who might help me verify some of my suspicions. The old man, Xuanhu, grinned at my words, revealing yellowed, smoke-stained teeth, and laughed. "Interesting. This little girl is quite interesting." He picked up the pendant again, his fingers forming a few strange gestures, muttering incantations under his breath. A moment later, his expression shifted slightly. "A guardian seal. And it's been activated." He looked at me, his eyes piercing. "Where's the other one?" My heart tightened. I'd definitely found the right person. "It's in someone else's hands." I didn't hide it. A counterfeit. Carved with a fortune-draining curse. A sharp glint flashed in Xuanhu's murky eyes. Fortune-draining curse. Ha! Those Su family folks, they really haven't given up, using such a sinister method to find a victim. Vessel. That word struck like lightning, piercing through the fog in my mind. The Su family's search for the pendant's owner was never about family ties at all. They are looking for a vessel to carry the family's curse or backlash. "Sir, you know the Su family." I suppressed my excitement and pressed further. Xuanhu let out a cold snort and pushed the jade pendant back to me. "I know a little. There's some connection with my ancestors, but it's not a good path. They specialize in crooked ways, at the expense of their own virtue." He leaned back in his chair, squinting at me. "That counterfeit, you sent it out on purpose?" I nodded. Tit for tat. Returning the favor in kind. Xuanhu stared at me for a long time, then suddenly burst into loud laughter. "Good. Good, tit for tat. Bold move." After laughing, his expression turned serious. "Little girl, let me warn you. That fortune-draining curse is vicious. The longer it's worn, the deeper the connection to bloodline, and the harsher the backlash. But since the Su family dares to use it, they definitely have a backup plan. Relying on that to bring them down hard. Moreover, he pointed at the real Jade pendant in my hand. This guardian seal of yours has been activated, but its power is still weak. Once the backlash from their side is too strong, or if the Su family finds a way to forcibly sever the connection, your guardian might not hold up, it could even drag you down with it. I gripped the Jade pendant tightly, feeling its warm, smooth touch against my palm. Thank you for the warning, sir. But I have no way back. Xuanhu sighed and waved his hand. Enough. These grudges of yours, I can't be bothered to get involved. Keep this thing safe. When the moment comes, it might just protect you once. He pulled out a small black token tied with a red string, made of an unidentifiable material, from his drawer and handed it to me. Take it. Consider it a good deed. I took the token. It was ice cold in my hand. Knowing it was something valuable, I thanked him sincerely. Thank you, sir. Leaving the Chinese medicine clinic and walking down the bustling old street, my heart felt heavier than when I arrived, but also clearer. The Su family, as I suspected, did it on purpose. They needed this vessel. Shen Xinrui was just an unlucky scapegoat. But now that I knew, I wouldn't let her, and certainly wouldn't let the Su family, get away with it. This game had only just begun. Near the alley by my home, I saw those thugs again. The blonde-haired one was leading his crew, lounging around and blocking the way. Seeing me, they closed in. Oh, back already. The blonde one, cigarette dangling from his mouth, grinned maliciously. We've been waiting for you. I stopped and stared at them coldly. Move. Move. He scoffed and reached out to grab my backpack. Last time Jiang Jin had your back, but who's gonna help you now? His hand had just touched my backpack strap. Suddenly, I raised my wrist, and the black token slipped slightly out of my sleeve. The blonde one's movement froze midair. He stared hard at the black token beneath my wrist, his face instantly turning deathly pale. As if he'd seen something utterly terrifying. The thugs behind him also wore looks of sheer dread. You. How do you have? His voice was trembling. I didn't answer, just looked at him calmly. The blonde one stumbled back several steps, as if burned. Go. Get out of here. He practically scrambled away, dragging his crew with him, fleeing the alley in a panic and vanishing without a trace. I looked down at the black token beneath my wrist. That thing Xuanhu gave me, it's even more useful than I thought. It gave me a bit more confidence for the coming storm. A few days later, explosive news spread across the school. The Su family was hosting a grand recognition and birthday banquet for Shen Xinrui. The venue, Cloud Hotel, the top 7-star hotel in Star City. Nearly every notable figure in the city had been invited. And our class, Shen Xinrui, generously announced she'd invite the whole class to witness her moment of happiness. When the invitation was delivered to my hands, the classmates around me burst into envious exclamations. Oh my God! Cloud Hotel! I've dreamed of going there once. Xinrui is so generous. She actually invited the whole class. And Jean, look, Xinrui still remembers you. I looked at the luxurious invitation with its gold embossed, carved patterns, and gently traced my fingertips across it. Shen Xinrui. This feast with ulterior motives, I've finally been waiting for it. Are you ready to receive the big gift I have for you? The day of the recognition banquet arrived in the blink of an eye. That evening, I stood before the wardrobe, not selecting any gorgeous gown. In the end, I chose only a simple white dress, elegant in style, but plain in fabric, practically shabby compared to the socialites who would soon arrive. My mother looked at me, hesitating as if she wanted to speak, and Jean, why not wear the one Mom bought you? No need, Mom. This is fine. I looked into the mirror, loosely twisting my long black hair up and securing it with a plain silver hairpin. Clean, fresh, even carrying a hint of youthful schoolgirl innocence. This better matched the identity I was supposed to have right now, a student from an ordinary family who happened to have been classmates with a wealthy heiress. My father drove me to a spot near Cloud Hotel. From afar, I could see the towering building, brilliantly lit like a crystal palace. Luxury cars lined up at the entrance, the air thick with perfume and elegant silhouettes, while reporters' camera flashes blazed in a frenzy. And Jean, maybe we shouldn't go after all. Dad looked at the spectacle, a little worried. I squeezed his hand and gave him a reassuring smile. Dad, it's fine. My classmates are all there. I'll make a brief appearance and come home. Getting out of the car, I walked alone toward the dazzling revolving door. I stood out starkly against the jeweled, meticulously dressed guests around me. I could feel the gazes coming at me from all directions. Curious, scrutinizing, and more than anything, openly contemptuous and mocking. Who's that? How dare she show up to the Sue family's banquet dressed like that? No idea. Probably some poor relative. She doesn't look like it either. I paid them no mind, straightened my back, and calmly handed my ordinary invitation to the doorman in his crisp uniform. He checked the invitation, then looked me up and down with a barely perceptible hint of disdain, but still stepped aside to let me in. The banquet hall was enormous, extravagantly luxurious. Crystal chandeliers refracted dazzling light, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and food. Soothing classical music flowed. Waiters in uniform carried trays of drinks, weaving through the elegantly dressed guests. Most of my classmates were gathered in a corner, looking a bit stiff and excited. When they saw me, they waved. And Jean, over here. I walked over, and a classmate immediately whispered, and Jean, how could you come dressed like that? Look at everyone else. I smiled. This is more comfortable. But my gaze had already drifted to the raised platform at the front of the banquet hall. Shen Shinrue was undoubtedly the absolute center of attention tonight. She wore a custom-made pink haute couture gown, a small diamond tiara on her head, and around her neck, there it was, the phoenix jade pendant. She was like a proud peacock, surrounded and feted by the crowd. Su Qingsong, chairman of the Su Group, and his wife, Yun Shu, flanked her on either side. Su Qingsong was tall, with a stern, imposing face and sharp eyes, carrying the oppressive weight of one long accustomed to power. Yun Shu, impeccably preserved, was elegant and noble, gazing at Shen Shinrue with eyes full of maternal affection. What a warm little family of three. I picked up a glass of juice, swirled it gently, and watched them coldly from across the crowd. Shen Shinrue seemed to sense my gaze and turned to look. Seeing how plain I was dressed, a flicker of smugness and mockery darted through her eyes. Then, linking arms with Yun Shu, she whispered something. Yun Shu glanced over at me too, her look distant and aloof, carrying a condescending appraisal. Then they turned back, no longer looking at me. As if I were just an insignificant speck of dust in the corner. The banquet officially began. The MC enthusiastically introduced the Su family's prominence and the joy of finally finding their long-lost daughter. Su Qingsong took the stage to speak, his voice booming with emotion. Thank you all for coming today to witness my daughter Su Ying's return to the Su family. For 18 years, we never gave up searching. He recounted the pain of losing his daughter and the ecstasy of finding her again, with genuine emotion. Many sentimental female guests in the audience had already begun wiping away tears. Yun Shu, seizing the moment, leaned against Shen Xinrui's shoulder, putting on a look of weeping for joy. Shen Xinrui cooperatively reddened her eyes, nestling against Yun Shu, one hand tightly clutching the jade pendant on her chest. What a touching scene of family reunion. I stood in the corner, a cold smirk curling at the corner of my mouth. Go on, perform. Perform to your heart's content. Soon, you won't be smiling anymore. According to the program, the next segment was the token display. The spotlight fell on Shen Xinrui, who carefully removed the phoenix jade pendant from her neck and handed it to the master of ceremonies. The MC placed the pendant on a tray lined with black velvet, which a server carried toward an elderly collector said to be highly respected, inviting him to give the final appraisal and commentary. Everyone's gaze followed the pendant. Under the light, it shimmered with a warm, lustrous glow, the phoenix form exquisitely crafted, truly no ordinary piece. The old collector put on white gloves, picked up the pendant, and examined it closely against the light, clicking his tongue in admiration. Fine jade. Fine craftsmanship. This is indeed a rare ancient jade treasure, especially this phoenix form, so lifelike, embodying the wisdom of the ancients. He went on at length about the pendant's preciousness and historical value. Pride and satisfaction beamed from Shen Xinrui and the Su parents' faces. Just then, a sudden change occurred. The dazzling crystal chandeliers in the banquet hall flickered violently several times. The light wavered unsteadily. A chill, eerie wind blew in from somewhere, making many lightly dressed ladies shiver. The music also stuttered, emitting a harsh, grating noise. The server holding the tray suddenly jerked his hand and let out a startled cry. The tray tilted. The phoenix jade pendant, the center of everyone's attention, slipped from his grasp. Ah! Amid the gasps, the pendant fell onto the thickly carpeted floor. A dull thud. The lights returned to normal at that moment. Everyone held their breath, staring at the pendant. The server, pale with terror, hastily bent down to pick it up. The old collector also rushed over to look. The pendant, which had been radiant with luster, now seemed dimmer. And at the phoenix's eye, an extremely fine, nearly invisible crack appeared to have formed. This. How could? The old collector put on his glasses, examining closely, his brow deeply furrowed. The color drained from Shen Xinrui's face in an instant. Su Qingsong and Yun Shu's expressions also darkened. Murmurs rippled through the audience. What happened? Why did the lights just flicker? Looks like it took a fall. Is it okay? Seems like something's off. Having this kind of mishap at such an occasion is a bit unlucky. Shen Xinrui rushed down from the stage, practically snatching the pendant from the server's hands, inspecting it nervously. When she saw the fine crack, her fingers trembled violently, and her face turned even uglier. She looked up, her gaze instinctively shooting toward where I stood. Her eyes were filled with suspicion, anger, and a trace of barely concealed panic. I stood in place, still holding that glass of juice. Meeting her gaze, I tilted my head slightly, wearing an utterly innocent, slightly puzzled expression. As if to ask, "What are you looking at me for?" What does this have to do with me? Inwardly, though, I was sneering. The backlash of the luck-stealing talisman is beginning to show, isn't it? This is only the start. Shinrue, the Su family. Your good fortune has run its course. The atmosphere in the banquet hall became somewhat delicate. Whispers spread like a tide. The sudden flickering of lights, the eerie cold wind, and the unexpected fall of the jade pendant with its fine cracks. All of it carried an inexplicable sense of malevolence. Especially at a recognition banquet where auspiciousness was paramount. Su Qingsang's expression darkened, but as a man who had weathered many storms, he quickly regained control of the situation. He picked up the microphone, his voice still booming, yet carrying a barely perceptible tension. A minor mishap, nothing serious. The jade pendant is intact, everyone need not worry. He signaled the MC to continue the proceedings. The music started again, but it seemed to lack its former smoothness. The waiters moved about more cautiously. Yet that intangible shadow seemed to have already descended. Shinrue clutched the jade pendant tightly, her knuckles turning white. Gone was her previous composure and pride. Her gaze wandered restlessly, still shaken. She no longer looked at me. Perhaps she dared not. The display segment ended hastily. Next came the dance portion. According to the arrangement, Shinrue was to dance the first opening dance with Su Qingsang. However, just as the music began and Su Qingsang extended his hand to her, oh no. The heel of Shinrue's exquisite high-heeled shoe snapped without any warning. She let out a startled cry, her body lurching to one side, nearly falling. Fortunately, Yun Shu beside her caught her in time. But the scene was already embarrassing enough. She had sprained her ankle, her face pale with pain, tears welling in her eyes. The broken heel rolled onto the carpet, glaringly conspicuous. Another wave of suppressed gasps rose from the audience. What's going on? Why so many mishaps today? Is Miss Su having a run of bad luck? Just recognized as family and things keep going wrong one after another, this omen isn't good. Yun Shu supported Shinrue, her own expression grim, murmuring words of comfort. Su Qingsang's outstretched hand froze mid-air, the muscles in his face twitching, a flash of extreme displeasure and irritation in his eyes. He barely maintained his composure, signaling the butler to quickly take Shinrue to the lounge for treatment. The opening dance was naturally ruined. The lights in the dance floor dimmed, and the atmosphere grew even more awkward. Our classmates gathered in a corner, exchanging uneasy glances, none daring to speak loudly. Shinrue seems a bit unlucky today. One classmate muttered. Yeah, the jade pendant fell, and now the heel broke. Could it be? She's too nervous. I quietly sipped my juice, saying nothing. My gaze swept across the room, taking in everyone's varied expressions. I saw Su Qingsang walk to a corner and give low-voiced instructions to a man in a dark suit who looked like an assistant, his face grim. The man nodded repeatedly and hurried away. My heart stirred slightly. The Su family, as expected, could no longer sit still. They must have sensed something was off. The curse's backlash was beginning to show. They needed to confirm whether their chosen victim was still under control and decide how to contain the damage. In the lounge, Shinrue sat on the sofa, her ankle already swollen, with the family doctor applying an ice pack. She winced in pain, her heart in a state of panic and confusion. Mom, how could this happen? My shoes were brand new, how could they break? She said tearfully, clutching Yun Shu's hand tightly. Yunshu patted her back, but her eyes flickered uneasily. It's fine, just an accident. Maybe there was a quality issue with the shoes. She offered words of comfort, but her gaze unconsciously drifted to the Phoenix Jade pendant placed on the side table by Shinrue. Under the soft lighting of the lounge, the pendant seemed a shade dimmer than before. Yunshu's heart sank. Could it be? Something had truly gone wrong. That and Jean. She remembered her daughter mentioning before that this jade pendant originally belonged to that girl named Jean. It was Jean who gave it to Shinrue. At the time, she only thought the girl was trying to curry favor with Shinrue, but now that she thought about it, everything seemed strange. Su Qingsong pushed the door open and came in, his expression still unpleasant. He first glanced at Shinrue's foot, his brows furrowed tightly. Then, his gaze also fell on the jade pendant. He walked over, picked it up, and carefully examined the fine crack. His eyes grew darker and darker. "Dad." Shinrue called out timidly. Su Qingsong ignored her, turning to look at Yunshu, his tone low. "Do you think this was an accident?" Yunshu opened her mouth but said nothing, yet her eyes said it all. Su Qingsong let out a cold snort and set the jade pendant back on the coffee table with a heavy thud. "I've sent people to look into that Jean. We'll have results soon." He paused, his eyes sinister. "If she really is behind this." Humph. Shinrue listened to her parents' conversation, growing even more afraid. She suddenly felt a strong sense of unease. As if all the wealth and glory she had grasped were like a sandcastle, slowly crumbling away. And the jade pendant around her neck was no longer a lucky charm, but rather a cold shackle. The banquet continued, but with the main guest absent, the atmosphere never warmed up. Many guests had already begun making excuses to leave early. I checked the time and felt it was about time. This act, the first half, had already been exciting enough. It was time to go back and prepare for the next scene. I said goodbye to my classmates and got ready to leave. Just as I reached the entrance of the banquet hall, I was stopped by someone. It was Su Qingsong's assistant. He wore a formulaic smile on his face, but his eyes were sharp. "Ms. N, right? Our chairman would like to invite you to the lounge for a few words. Here it comes." I sneered inwardly, but on the surface, I showed just the right amount of surprise and a hint of unease. "Chairman Su." "Me? Is there something?" "The chairman just has some questions about your past school life and would like to ask you." "Please." The assistant's tone left no room for refusal, and he gestured with a "please" motion. I glanced at the bodyguard figure faintly visible behind him. I knew I couldn't avoid it. Fine. It was a good chance to see what they were really like now. I nodded and followed him toward the lounge, silently calculating the time in my mind. Another good show should be about to begin soon, right? Pushing open the door to the lounge. The atmosphere inside was suffocatingly oppressive. Su Qingsong sat on the main sofa, his expression cold and grim. Yunshu sat beside him, looking at me with complicated eyes. Shinrue was curled up on another sofa, an ice pack on her foot. When she saw me come in, her eyes immediately filled with resentment and accusation. As if all the misfortune was my fault. "And Jean, please have a seat." Su Qingsong pointed to the chair across from him, his voice devoid of warmth. I sat down as instructed, hands resting on my knees, looking obedient with a hint of nervousness. "Chairman Su, you wanted to see me. Is there something?" Su Qingsong didn't beat around the bush. He picked up the jade pendant from the coffee table and held it up in front of me. This jade pendant, I heard it used to be yours. I looked at the jade pendant, my gaze candid, yes. It's been passed down in my family. Then why did you give it to Xinrui? Su Qingsong stared into my eyes, his gaze scrutinizing and oppressive. I met his gaze without flinching, my tone even carrying a hint of grievance. Because Xinrui said she really liked it, and we were good friends, so I gave it to her. At the time, I was actually quite reluctant to part with it. I looked at Xinrui, lowering my voice a little. Xinrui, didn't you also say you liked it and promised to take good care of it? How? Did it seem to get accidentally damaged? Xinrui was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She abruptly sat up straight, no longer caring about the pain in her foot, and shrieked, "You're lying. It was you. You did something. Did you tamper with the jade pendant? Otherwise, why would so many things go wrong today?" Yunshu also furrowed her brows and looked at me, her tone laced with doubt. "And Jean, when this jade pendant was in your hands, did anything unusual ever happen?" I looked at the three of them, all on high alert like they were facing a great enemy, and felt nothing but irony in my heart. See? Human nature is so selfish. The moment something goes wrong, the first thing they think of is that someone else is behind it, that they need to shift the blame. They never stop to consider whether they themselves are unworthy of what they have, whether they've been grasping for something that was never meant to be theirs. I shook my head, my expression even more innocent, tinged with the hurt of being wronged. No. The jade pendant was fine all along. I don't know why things turned out this way today either. I paused, as if something had just occurred to me, and spoke hesitantly. But I think I remember my grandmother saying that the pendant has a will of its own and chooses its rightful keeper. If someone it doesn't approve of wears it, things might not go smoothly. The moment those words left my mouth, the air in the lounge froze solid. Su Qingsong and Yun Shu's expressions changed drastically. Xinrui's eyes flew wide open, her face as pale as paper. Chooses its own master. If someone it doesn't approve of wears it, things won't go smoothly. It was like a poison-tipped dagger, striking precisely at their deepest fear, the possibility they least wanted to face. Could it be that Xinrui wasn't the master the jade pendant recognized? Could it be that they had found the wrong person? In that deathly silence, bang. The door to the lounge was slammed open. A man who looked like a steward rushed in frantically, not even bothering to knock. His face was terrified, his voice trembling. "Chairman. Madam. Something terrible has happened. Outside. A group of people have arrived. They say they're from the family of the imperial capital. They have a token of identity, and they're looking for their missing daughter who went missing 18 years ago. They say their missing daughter has a phoenix-shaped birthmark on her wrist." Boom. It was like a thunderclap exploding in the lounge. Su Qingsong and Yun Shu shot to their feet. Xinrui jerked her head down to look at her own smooth wrist, then looked at me in utter disbelief. I sat in my chair, and amid the chaos and the stares of extreme shock, I slowly raised my right hand. Gently rolled up my sleeve. On the inside of my wrist, that pale red birthmark in the shape of a phoenix with spread wings was clearly exposed under the light. Lifelike. Meeting their horrified gazes, I tilted my head slightly and gave a pure smile tinged with a hint of confusion. My voice was soft and gentle, yet it struck their hearts like a heavy hammer. A phoenix birthmark. Are you talking about this? Dead silence. The lounge was silent as the grave. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone's eyes were fixed on my raised wrist. That pale red phoenix birthmark seemed to come alive under the light, carrying an indescribable spiritual charm. Su Qingsang's usual authority and composure shattered completely, leaving only shock and disbelief. Yun Shu covered her mouth, her eyes wide, her body trembling slightly as she looked from me to Shen Xinrui, her gaze utterly chaotic. Shen Xinrui was the most unhinged of all. All the color drained from her face, her lips quivering as if she'd seen a ghost. She shook her head violently and shrieked, "Impossible. This can't be. You're a fake. You have to be a fake. Where did you get that fake birthmark?" She tried to lunge at me, but forgot about her injured foot. The moment she moved, she cried out in pain and collapsed back onto the sofa, a complete mess. I slowly lowered my sleeve, covering the birthmark that had caused such an uproar. His expression remained calm, even carrying a hint of perfectly timed bewilderment. "Chairman Su, Mrs. Su, what's going on outside? What in family? What missing daughter?" My gaze was purely innocent, as if I knew nothing at all about what was happening before me. Su Qingsang stared at me intently, his eyes as if trying to strip my skin and bones, to see through the soul beneath my flesh. After all, he was an old fox. He took a few deep breaths, forcibly suppressing the churning emotions within him. "And Jean," his voice was dry and hoarse, "what's with the birthmark on your wrist?" "Birthmark?" I touched my wrist and said matter-of-factly, "I've had it since I was born. My grandmother said it's a sign of good fortune." These words were like a thorn, stabbing into the three members of the Su family, their faces turning ashen. Good fortune. If they had found the wrong person, then what did Shen Xinrui count for? What did the affection and resources they had poured in during this time count for? A joke? "Chairman. Madam. The Yin family has already arrived at the banquet hall. They're demanding to see whoever holds the phoenix token or bears the phoenix birthmark." The butler urged anxiously from the side, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Things had completely spiraled out of control. Su Qingsang's face shifted unpredictably. In the end, he gave me a deep, profound look, one of extreme complexity. There was suspicion, scrutiny, calculation, and a trace of barely perceptible murderous intent. "Invite the Yin family in," he ordered in a low voice, then added, "Seal off the information. Nothing that happened in the lounge today is to be leaked." That last sentence was directed at me and the assistant, laden with heavy warning. The assistant quickly bowed his head in acknowledgement. I, on the other hand, lowered my eyelashes slightly, concealing the cold mockery in my eyes. "Seal off the information. I'm afraid it's already too late. Since the Yin family dared to come looking so openly, they must have come prepared. This murky water, your Su family wants to cover it up, but you won't be able to." Soon, the lounge door was pushed open again. A group of people walked in. At the forefront were a distinguished middle-aged man and woman. The man wore a Chinese-style stand-collar suit, with a refined face but eyes as sharp as an eagle's, radiating the authority of one long accustomed to power, no less imposing than Su Qingsang. The woman wore an elegant dark green silk dress in a traditional Chinese style. She was strikingly beautiful, but her eyes were red-rimmed and her expression intensely agitated. The moment she entered, her gaze locked onto me. Behind them followed several bodyguards and assistants who clearly possessed formidable skills. This entourage, in fact, seemed to subtly overshadow the Su family's earlier entrance. Mr. and Mrs. and what brings you to Star City? You should have given us a heads up. Su Qingsong forced a smile and stepped forward to exchange pleasantries, trying to seize the initiative. But the man called Mr. and Hongi, the head of the N family, didn't bother with his formalities at all. His gaze was almost tangible, first sweeping over the dull jade pendant on the coffee table, then landing on Shen Xinrui, who was curled up on the sofa with a pale face. His brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. Finally, his gaze settled on my face. That look carried an indescribable complexity, excitement, guilt, scrutiny, and a trace of cautious confirmation. Mrs. and Yunmuan stepped forward 2 paces directly, her voice choked with emotion, her eyes burning into me. Child. You, on your wrist. Is there a birthmark shaped like a phoenix? All eyes in the room focused on me once again. The 3 members of the Su family's hearts were in their throats. Shen Xinrui's nails dug deeply into her palms. Under the gaze of countless eyes, I nodded gently. Then, under Mrs. N's almost fainting gaze of excitement, I once again, slowly, rolled up my sleeve, revealing that pale red phoenix birthmark fully before everyone. Are you referring to this? Madame Yunmuan burst into tears the moment she saw the birthmark. She clapped her hand over her mouth to stifle the sobs that threatened to escape. She hurried forward, wanting to grab my hand, yet afraid of being too forward, her hand hovering in midair, trembling. It's it. This is it. Exactly as recorded in the ancestral teachings. The phoenix weeps blood, guarding the N family. She sobbed uncontrollably, turning to Hongi. It's our daughter. It really is our daughter. And Hongi, though calmer than his wife, betrayed his inner turmoil through his clenched fists and slightly reddened eyes. He stepped forward, his gaze locked onto the birthmark on my wrist as if to etch it into his very soul. Child. His voice carried a barely perceptible hoarseness. What's your name? Are you 18 this year? Is there also a small, light brown cloud-shaped mark behind your left shoulder? My heart stirred slightly. It wasn't surprising they knew about the birthmark, but even that extremely hidden cloud-shaped mark behind my left shoulder, known only to the closest of kin. It seemed this was real. Meeting his excited, expectant gaze, I nodded gently. My name is Jean. And for peace, Jean for Jade. I am 18 this year. Behind my left shoulder, there is indeed a small, cloud-like mark. With each confirmation, the excitement and certainty in Hongi and Yunmuan's eyes grew. By the time I finished my last sentence, Yunmuan could no longer hold back and pulled me tightly into her arms. My daughter. My poor daughter. Mother has finally found you. Finally found you. Her embrace was warm and firm, filled with the wild joy of recovery and deep guilt. I stiffened for a moment. In my previous life, until death, I had never experienced such an embrace. My adoptive parents were good to me, but this intense emotional impact from blood kinship was foreign. Hesitantly, I slowly raised my hands and gently returned the embrace. Feeling my response, Yunmuan cried even harder. And Hongi also stepped forward, placing his large hand gently on my shoulder, steady and firm, conveying silent comfort and affirmation. This scene of family recognition was sincere and moving, forming a stark contrast to the false warmth of the Su family nearby. In the lounge, the atmosphere was eerily tense. Su Qingsong and Yun Shu's faces could no longer be described as merely ugly. They were the color of suppressed frustration and livid rage, like someone forced to swallow a fly and unable to spit it out. The daughter they had painstakingly sought, perhaps even through underhanded means, turned out to be a complete fraud. And the real one had been overlooked all along, nearly suppressed and eliminated by them. What an immense irony. Shinrue was trembling all over, staring at me held tightly by the couple, her eyes filled with jealousy, resentment, and overwhelming fear. She was finished. Everything she had, wealth, status, the identity of a wealthy heiress, was about to be lost. She suddenly grabbed the jade pendant from the coffee table, clutching it like a last lifeline, and shrieked, "No! You're lying! I have the jade pendant. I'm the daughter the pendant recognizes. This birthmark. It might have been added later. It's fake." At her words, Anhong's gaze turned icy cold. He turned to Su Qingsong, his tone stripped of all courtesy, carrying a frigid interrogation. "Chairman Su, why is this counterfeit jade pendant, along with my and family's missing daughter, in your Su household? And in the hands of such an irrelevant person?" He emphasized the word counterfeit heavily. It was like two resounding slaps across the faces of Su Qingsong and Shinrue. Su Qingsong's facial muscles twitched, rendered speechless. Yunshu opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but found herself unable to utter a single word. And Hongi stopped looking at them. His gaze fell on me, and instantly softened again. "And Jean," he called my name for the first time, with a natural intimacy, "this jade pendant, did you give it to her?" I nestled in Yunmuwen's arms, lifted my eyes, glanced at Shinrue who seemed half-crazed, then at the Su couple whose faces were livid, and nodded gently. My voice was soft, yet it carried clearly across the entire lounge. She said she really liked it, and we were good friends, so I gave it to her." I paused, then added with innocent cruelty. "I even told her back then to take good care of it. Who would have thought? She really isn't the owner it recognizes." As my words fell, Shinrue seemed to have all her strength drained away, collapsing onto the sofa, her face ashen. Su Qingsong closed his eyes, knowing the game was lost. The An family had come to their doorstep, with solid evidence in hand. Their Su family's scheme of substituting a false daughter, perhaps even harboring malicious intent, had completely fallen apart. And Hongi let out a cold snort and ignored the Su family. He said gently to me and Yunmuwen, "Take our daughter home first. I'll handle things here." Yunmuwen held my hand tightly, unwilling to let go for even a moment, nodding repeatedly. Okay, we're going home. Back to our own home." She pulled me along, escorted by the An family's bodyguards, and walked straight out. As we passed by Shinrue, whose face was ashen, I paused slightly in my steps. I turned my head and glanced at her. In a voice only the two of us could hear, I said softly, "See, I told you. What isn't yours will never be yours. What you force will come back to bite you." Shinrue jerked her head up, her pupils contracting sharply as she stared at me in terror. I gave her a faint smile, one that was ice-cold to the bone. Then, without lingering, I followed my biological mother out of that suffocating lounge. Behind me, I vaguely heard Su Qingsong's suppressed roar and Shinrue's hysterical sobs. Outside the door, the clamor of the banquet hall seemed to have faded into the distance. A new phase of my life had begun, one I would write for myself. When I stepped out of the lounge, the atmosphere in the banquet hall was equally strange. The music had stopped at some point. The elegantly dressed guests hadn't fully dispersed, Instead, they gathered in small groups, murmuring to one another, their eyes occasionally darting toward the lounge. Clearly, news of the Yin family's forceful arrival had spread like wildfire. Seeing me walk out hand in hand with Madame and Yun Muwen, followed by the imposing and family bodyguards, everyone's gaze instantly converged on us. Curiosity, scrutiny, shock, and quickly shifting flattery and fawning. They looked at me, this girl who, just minutes ago, they had secretly mocked as shabby, now with my identity completely overturned. The Yin family of the imperial capital. A true top-tier dynasty, with deeper roots and greater heritage than the Su family. Who could have imagined that the Su family's grand recognition banquet would end up being a wedding dress sewn for someone else? The biological daughter had been right under their noses all along. Yun Muwen held my hand tightly, her palm warm and trembling slightly, as if afraid that if she let go, I would vanish. She ignored all the gazes cast our way, only turning her head to look at me, her eyes brimming with maternal love and guilt. "And Jean, don't be afraid. Mom is taking you home." I nodded, feeling this unfamiliar yet overwhelming familial affection, my heart a mix of emotions. We walked through the crowd toward the banquet hall doors. Wherever we passed, the crowd parted to make a path. Those eyes that had once held contempt now all turned into reverence and caution. As we passed the area where my classmates stood, they all stared at me, utterly dumbfounded, their faces a riot of expressions. Shocking, unbelievable, and with a hint of belated fear. I calmly swept my gaze over them without lingering. I had already tasted enough of the world's fickleness and the coldness of human hearts in my past life. The Yin family's cars were parked right at the hotel entrance, a fleet of sleek black luxury vehicles, exuding an imposing presence. The stretched limousine's interior was spacious and lavish, filled with the scent of leather and woody fragrance. Yun Muwen and I sat in the back seat, and she kept holding my hand, chattering on and on. She talked about how much she had missed me over the years, how much effort the Yin family had put into finding me, and the torment my father and she had endured. It was all our fault. That year, when we took you back to the ancestral home for the ritual, something went wrong on the road, and in the chaos, we lost you. We searched for you for 18 whole years. She said, tears falling again. I listened quietly, occasionally handing her a tissue. But inwardly, I was not as calm as I appeared. An accident? Was it really an accident? Why did it have to happen on the way back to the ancestral home for the ritual? The Yin family's ancestral home, the Su family's fortune-draining curse, the birthmark on my wrist, the real phoenix jade pendant. All of this seemed to be connected by an invisible thread. Behind it all, there was likely a deeper secret hidden. The car did not head to any of Star City's renowned luxury residential areas but drove straight to the outskirts. Finally, it stopped before a manor-style villa nestled against the mountains and water, heavily guarded. This was clearly one of the Yin family's properties in Star City. It was less like a home and more like a small fortress. Entering the villa, the decor was not excessively opulent, yet it exuded heritage and refinement everywhere. Antiques, calligraphy, and paintings, rosewood furniture, and the faint scent of sandalwood drifting in the air. An old butler in a traditional Chinese jacket had been waiting for some time. Seeing us, he bowed respectfully, "Madam, Miss." "Mr. Fu, this is Jean, my daughter," Yun Muwen introduced, her tone filled with pride. Mr. Fu looked at me, his gaze gentle yet sharp, and gave a slight bow. "Miss, welcome home." I nodded at him. Yun Muwen took my hand and led me up to the second floor, pushing open a door. "And Jean, look, this is the room your mother prepared for you long ago. I wonder if you like it." The room was large, decorated in a fresh light blue tone, with a huge floor-to-ceiling window and a balcony. The walk-in closet was filled with the latest seasonal clothes, and the vanity was lined with top-tier skincare products. Everything was perfect. Like a princess's castle. I like it very much, thank you. Mom, I said softly. Yunmuin's eyes reddened again, and she hugged me. Silly child, why thank your mother? You rest well. If you need anything, just tell Mr. Fu, or tell me directly. Your father will come back once he's done with matters over there. She added a few more reminders before reluctantly leaving. The door closed. I was alone in the room. A profound silence enveloped me. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the meticulously tended garden and the hazy mountain shadows in the distance. In just one day, my world had been turned upside down. From the despised daughter of a grocery store owner to the true heiress of a top-tier family. I had found my biological parents. I had trampled Shinrui and the Su family underfoot. It seemed my vengeance was complete. But in my heart, there was no imagined ecstasy or relief. Instead, it felt heavier. The waters of the An family ran deeper than the Su family's. The real phoenix jade pendant rested in my inner pocket, radiating a warm, gentle aura. The birthmark on my wrist also tingled faintly with heat. All of this reminded me that my origins were far more than just being an heiress. And young Jean. Why did he help me last time? What connection did he have with the An family, or the Su family? Too many questions swirled in my mind. I knew I had stepped into a larger, more dangerous vortex. But I was not afraid. Since I was back, I was determined to uncover all the truth. Protect everyone I care about. As for those who owe me, I won't let a single one off. Whether it's Shinrui, the Su family, or other hidden hands lurking in the shadows. I touched the birthmark on my wrist, my gaze gradually turning resolute. The night grew deeper. From downstairs came the sound of a car engine. It should be Hongi returning. I composed myself and walked out of the room. In the living room downstairs, Hongi had taken off his suit jacket, a hint of fatigue in his brow, but when he saw me, his eyes immediately softened. And Jean, you're still awake. I was waiting for you. I walked down the stairs. Yunmuin poured him a cup of tea and asked with concern, how did things go over there? And Hongi snorted coldly and took the cup. That old fox Su Qingsong, still trying to make excuses, saying they were misled by the jade pendant and knew nothing of the truth. He paused, looked at me, his expression complicated. And Jean, tell your father honestly, that counterfeit jade pendant, did you know something about it? Yunmuin also looked at me nervously. The living room fell silent. I knew this question would come sooner or later. I raised my head, looking at them with clear eyes, and instead of answering directly, I asked in return, Dad, Mom, did you search for me only because I'm your daughter? Or is it because this birthmark on my wrist is connected to something passed down in the An family? I gently rolled up my sleeve, revealing the faint red phoenix birthmark. The faces of Hongi and Yunmuin changed at the same time. The air in the living room seemed to freeze. Hongi's hand holding the teacup stopped mid-air. The gentle smile on Yunmuin's face also stiffened. The two exchanged a glance, both seeing shock in each other's eyes. They hadn't expected me to ask this question so directly. Even less did they expect that I seemed to know something. Hongi slowly set down the teacup, his fatigue replaced by a deep solemnity. He looked at me, his gaze sharp as an eagle's, no longer the loving father from moments ago, but the undisputed head of the An family. And Jean, why would you ask that? His voice was low, laced with scrutiny. I didn't back down, meeting his gaze. The Su family identified Shinrue as their daughter based on a counterfeit jade pendant. That's strange in itself. I analyzed calmly. Unless that pendant held special meaning to them, or rather, they needed it to confirm some kind of connection. I paused, raising my wrist, the birthmark glimmering faintly under the light. And you, the Yin family, besides the accident back then, the more definitive basis for finding your daughter is this birthmark. In the ancient texts Grandma left behind, there's a mention of a true phoenix guards, counterfeit steals fortune. I think that doesn't just refer to the pendant, but also to the person bearing this birthmark, right? I spoke, blending partial truth with speculation. It showed I wasn't completely in the dark, while holding back the most crucial parts, the secret of my rebirth, and my clear understanding of the fortune-draining curse and the Su family's motives. And Hongyi and Yunmuwen's expressions shifted repeatedly. Shock, confusion, and a hint of relief. Yunmuwen couldn't help but speak up, and Jean, your grandmother. She left behind ancient texts. Did she ever tell you anything? Her tone carried urgency and a certain expectation. I shook my head. Just some fragmented old texts, many parts unclear. Grandma passed away early, so she didn't have time to tell me much. That was the truth. And Hongyi was silent for a moment, then finally let out a long sigh. He rubbed his brow, the air of authority receding somewhat, replaced by a heavy helplessness. Since you've guessed some of it, I suppose it's time you knew certain things. He gestured for me to sit down. Yunmuwen sat down beside me, tightly holding my hand, as if giving me strength. Our Yin family, our ancestors were not merely an ordinary wealthy household. And Hongyi's voice carried a distant, profound tone. We are an ancient mystical lineage, guardians of things and secrets beyond ordinary comprehension. The phoenix birthmark on your wrist is no ordinary mark, it is the guardian seal of the Yin family's direct bloodline. It works in tandem with the true heirloom of the Yin family, the true phoenix jade pendant, possessing the mystical power to protect its bearer and suppress fate. Indeed. It was just as I had guessed. My heart quickened slightly as I continued to listen. As for the Su family, and Hongyi's tone turned cold, laced with undisguised disgust, their ancestors were once vassals of our Yin family, but they were crooked at heart. They secretly learned fragments of mystical arts, specializing in devious methods, stealing fortune, deflecting calamity, and other sinister techniques. 18 years ago, when we took you back to the ancestral home for the bloodline awakening ritual, that accident we encountered on the way was no coincidence. It was almost certainly the Su family's doing. They wanted to abduct you, seize the power of your guardian seal, or use you against the Yin family. Yunmuwen's tears fell again, her voice choked with emotion. It's all our fault for being unprepared back then, letting you drift outside all these years, suffering so much. I tightened my grip on her hand, waves of shock surging within me. So that was it. My disappearance back then was orchestrated by the Su family. They didn't just want to steal fortune, they wanted to destroy the Yin family's legacy at its very root. And Hongyi's eyes turned icy. The Su family's search for the daughter, identified by that counterfeit jade pendant, was never about family bonds. That counterfeit jade pendant is inscribed with a vicious, fortune-draining curse. They were looking for a victim to bear their family's accumulated misfortune or a curse's backlash. That Shinrue is nothing but the scapegoat they chose. Everything fit now. The Su family's malice far exceeded my imagination. So what do we do now? I looked at Hongyi. A hint of ruthlessness appeared on Anhongi's face. Since the Su family dares to set their sights on the An family, they must be prepared to pay the price. This time, their scheme had backfired spectacularly. They chose the wrong person to absorb their misfortune. The curse's backlash would be more than they could handle. He looked at me, his gaze softening again, now tinged with a hint of approval. And Jean, you did well. By a twist of fate, you turned their scheme against them, letting that counterfeit jade pendant fall onto Shinrue and throwing the Su family's plans into chaos. Otherwise, if they had truly found a suitable vessel, the consequences would have been unthinkable. I lowered my head and said softly, I just didn't want her to have it easy. That statement was half true, half false. But Anhongi and Yunmuwen took it as my retaliation after being wronged, which only made them feel more protective. Don't worry. Mom and Dad are back now, no one will ever bully you again. Yunmuwen wrapped her arms around me, comforting me gently. Anhongi added, I'll handle the Su family. You've just come home, rest well and take time to adjust. As for school, if you want to transfer. No, that won't be necessary. I shook my head immediately. I'm going back to my original school. Both Anhongi and Yunmuwen looked surprised. But that place. There's something there I haven't finished. I raised my eyes, calm yet resolute. Besides, now that I'm the daughter of the An family, I should return with my head held high, shouldn't I? Running away was never my style. I wanted everyone to know, I, and Jean, am back. In my true, undeniable identity. Anhongi looked at me, a glint of admiration flashing in his eyes. Good. You're truly worthy of being my daughter. That's the spirit. If you want to go back, then go back. Your father supports you. He gave a few more reminders for me to rest early, then left with Yunmuwen. I returned to that luxurious yet unfamiliar room. Standing before the huge floor-to-ceiling window, I gazed at the heavy darkness outside. The fog in my heart had lifted somewhat, but an even greater mystery loomed overhead. The An family, the Su family, the mystic sect, the guardian seal, the fate-stealing charm. This was a bizarre yet real world. And I was at the very center of the storm. I touched the true phoenix jade pendant hidden close to my chest, then glanced at the birthmark on my wrist. Since fate had pushed me here, then I would use this second chance to overturn the entire board. All of you who schemed against me and hurt me, just wait. The next morning, I changed into the new clothes that had been prepared in my room, fine in quality but understated in style. When I came downstairs, Anhongi and Yunmuwen were already waiting for me in the dining room. The table was laden with exquisite breakfast dishes. And Jean, come have breakfast quickly. The driver will take you to school in a bit, Yunmuwen greeted me warmly. Anhongi looked up from his newspaper and gave me a smile. The atmosphere was cozy, as if we had always gotten along this way. After breakfast, I got into the luxury car arranged by the An family. The driver respectfully closed the door for me. The car drove smoothly toward the school. I knew that stepping through those school gates today would bring another storm. Sure enough, when that iconic luxury car pulled up at the school entrance and I stepped out, every student who witnessed the scene froze in their tracks. All eyes snapped to me. Shock, murmurs, and whispers spread like a virus. That's in Jean. Why is she getting out of a car like that? Oh my God. Wasn't she still? Haven't you seen the group chat? The Su family's recognition banquet last night blew up. And Jean is the biological daughter of the powerful An family in the capital. What? The powerful and family. That and family. Shen Xinrui is a fraud. Those in the know had already pieced it together, while the uninformed were stunned speechless by the sudden reversal. I ignored all the stares, straightened my back, and walked calmly toward the teaching building as usual. The crowd parted automatically wherever I passed. The looks that had once been mocking and contemptuous were now filled with awe, flattery, and even fear. Just as I reached the foot of the teaching building, I spotted Shen Xinrui surrounded by a few people. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen, clearly she hadn't slept all night. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes, now wrinkled and stripped of all their former luster. When she saw me, her eyes instantly turned venomous, like knives dipped in poison. She rushed at me and blocked my path, her voice shrill and piercing, "And Jean. You bitch. You set me up. You knew all along, didn't you? You deliberately ruined me." She looked half-crazed, reaching out to grab me. Some of the people around her looked embarrassed, while others averted their eyes, not daring to step forward. Behind me, the infamily bodyguard who had appeared without my notice silently stepped forward, placing himself between Shen Xinrui and me. His gaze was icy, his presence imposing. Shen Xinrui faltered under that stare, her movement freezing midair. I looked at her pathetic, hysterical state and felt nothing. Only cold contempt. "I ruined you," I said softly, my voice quiet yet loud enough for everyone eavesdropping to hear. "The Jade pendant, you begged me for it, and I gave it to you. The Su family, you went to claim kinship with that pendant yourself. From start to finish, did I ever force you?" I stepped forward, closing in on her, my gaze sweeping over her bare neck. "Oh, right. Where's my pendant? Didn't you promise to take good care of it?" Shen Xinrui's face changed drastically. She instinctively clutched her pocket, her eyes frantic. That's mine. The Su family recognized it as mine." "Is that so?" I raised an eyebrow slightly, my tone carrying a hint of pity. "But, the N family said it was a fake, didn't they? And besides, does the Su family still want you now?" These words struck like a sharp knife, plunging deep into Shen Xinrui's heart. Her entire body trembled violently, all color draining from her face. Her lips quivered, yet she couldn't utter a single word. The gazes around her pierced like needles. Mockery, contempt, schadenfreude. Falling from the clouds to the mud often takes but a single moment. And those who trample her hardest are often the ones who lifted her highest yesterday. I no longer looked at her. I walked past her, heading straight for the classroom. Behind me came Shen Xinrui's hysterical sobs and the sound of her so-called friends scattering like birds. The coldness of human nature was on full display in that moment. Just as I sat down in the classroom, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. The content was only 3 short words: "Beware of Su." My pupils constricted slightly. The sender was Jiang Jin. Meanwhile, the news sent shock waves through Star City's elite circles. The farce of the Su family's recognition banquet spread at an astonishing speed. The fake heiress, the powerful and family, the counterfeit Jade pendant, the Phoenix birthmark. Every element was enough to ignite conversation. The Su family became the laughingstock of all Star City. Their stock hit limit down repeatedly, business partners withdrew their investments one after another, and the bank's debt collection calls rang without end. Su Qingsong was overwhelmed, reportedly throwing tantrums at the company, yet powerless to turn things around. The fortune-stealing backlash from that counterfeit Jade pendant, fueled intentionally or not by the family, seemed to take effect with alarming speed. Shen Shinrui vanished completely. Word had it the Su family kicked her out, not even letting her take the cursed counterfeit pendant. Her former friends avoided her like the plague, and online, mockery of her as a scheming woman and imposter flooded every corner. No one cared where she went, or whether she lived or died. The fervor and indifference of the crowd were laid bare in her. As for the family, my return was spun into a legend. And Hongyi and Yunmuan mobilized every resource to clear my name and introduce me to everyone who mattered. The phoenix birthmark on my wrist became a symbol of honor for the family's direct bloodline. I never returned to that little grocery store again. But I settled my adoptive parents comfortably in a quiet property under the family's name, with caretakers arranged for them. At first they were anxious and uneasy, but with my insistence and reassurance, they gradually came to accept it. I knew they were the only warmth I'd had in my past life. In this one, I had to protect them completely. Life seemed to return to calm. I adapted well at my new school, a top-tier private academy. With the family's backing and my own decent grades, I quickly found my footing. No one dared look down on me anymore. Those envious or jealous gazes, I could now face with equanimity. But I knew the calm was only on the surface. The Su family wouldn't let things go. Jiang Jin's "Beware of Su" text felt more like a warning. And within the family itself, things didn't seem entirely unified. Some collateral relatives looked at me with subtle scrutiny and jealousy. Especially a cousin named Lin, who always spoke with barbs, hinting that having grown up outside for so many years, I didn't deserve to inherit the family's true legacy. The true legacy. I touched the genuine phoenix jade pendant worn close to my body. It seemed to grow increasingly connected to the birthmark on my wrist, occasionally emitting a warm glow in the dead of night, merging into my body. The mysterious memories from my ancestors in my mind grew clearer and clearer. I could faintly sense a power awakening within me. One day, Hongyi summoned me to his study. His expression was somewhat grave. "And Jean, the Su family has made a move." My heart stirred. They still won't give up. It's just a cornered dog jumping the wall. And Hongyi sneered. They somehow found out that the ancestral mansion has a secret place, hiding a treasure that can reverse one's fortune. That madman Su Qingsang actually tried to force his way in. A secret place. A treasure. I looked at Hongyi. He pondered for a moment, as if weighing his words. At this point, there are some things I should tell you. That secret place doesn't hold any physical treasure, it's the final trial of the family's inheritance, the Phoenix Nirvana. Only direct bloodline descendants bearing the guardian mark can enter, guided by the true Phoenix Jade. Passing the trial will fully awaken your bloodline power and grant mastery over the family's true mystical inheritance. He looked at me, his gaze complex. Your grandmother, back then, failed the trial, and that's why she passed away in sorrow. Your mother, too, lacked sufficient bloodline power to even touch it. And Jean, you've just returned, and I shouldn't have you take such a risk. But the Su family is pressing too hard, and I sense that your bloodline may be purer than any of us imagined. Perhaps you could try. The Phoenix Nirvana Trial. Awakening bloodline power. I gripped the jade tightly, feeling a nearly yearning throb emanating from it. I'll go. I didn't hesitate. Not just to deal with the Su family, but to take control of my own destiny. And Hongyi looked at my resolute eyes and nodded with relief. Good. Worthy of being my daughter. 3 days from now, the formation power of the ancestral mansion will be at its weakest, the optimal time to open the trial. I'll take you there myself. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, I could clearly sense the undercurrents stirring. And Lynn's gaze toward me grew even more hostile. The Sue family seemed to have caught wind of something unusual, making constant small moves. Jiang Jin sent another text, still brief: the ancestral mansion has an insider. An insider? My heart turned cold. So there really was someone within the An family colluding with the Sue family. I relayed the information to Anhongyi. His face darkened, but he didn't seem too surprised. It seems some people can no longer be kept around. The night before we set out for the ancestral mansion, I was alone in my room preparing. Yun Muwen came to see me, her eyes red, pressing a protective charm into my hands. And Jean, you must be careful. Mom can't lose you again. I hugged her and whispered reassuringly, Mom, don't worry. I'll come back. The next day, before dawn. Under the protection of a few utterly loyal confidants, Anhongyi and I quietly left Star City, heading for the An family ancestral mansion deep in the mountains. The mansion was even more ancient and desolate than I had imagined. Moss covered the mottled stone walls, and the air was thick with age and an indescribable pressure. Uncle Fu was already waiting there. He led us through countless courtyards to the deepest part of the mansion, before a massive stone wall. Carved into the wall was a giant phoenix with wings spread, poised to take flight, identical in form to the one on my Jade. This is the place. Anhongyi said in a low voice. And Jean, drip your blood onto the Jade, then press it against the phoenix's eye. I did as instructed, cutting my fingertip. A crimson bead of blood fell onto the true phoenix Jade. The Jade let out a faint resonance, suddenly glowing with a warm yet dazzling white light. I took a deep breath and pressed the glowing Jade against the right eye of the phoenix carving on the stone wall. Rumble. The wall shook violently. The phoenix's eye seemed to come alive, shooting out two beams of golden light that enveloped me. A tremendous pulling force surged forth. And Jean. Anhongyi cried out. My vision blurred, and I felt myself being swept into a surreal vortex. It felt like an eternity, yet also just a single instant. I landed on solid ground, finding myself in a strange space. All around was nothing but void-like darkness, with only a path paved with starlight beneath my feet, winding off into the distance. In the air, an ancient and majestic energy permeated everything. This was the Phoenix Nirvana trial. I gripped the jade pendant tightly, feeling the searing heat emanating from both it and the birthmark on my wrist. Steeling myself, I stepped onto the path of starlight. With every step, the scenery around me shifted. Sometimes flames consumed me, sometimes bone-piercing cold gripped me, sometimes illusions sprang up, tempting me to sink into them. That was the test of inner demons. A tempering of the will. Clenching my teeth, relying on the resilience of having lived 2 lifetimes and my unwavering conviction for revenge and protection, I pressed forward step by step. In my mind, those profound inherited memories grew clearer and clearer as I advanced, as if unsealed. After walking for what seemed like an eternity, a massive phoenix statue appeared ahead, identical to the one on the ancestral mansion's stone wall, only far more lifelike, as if it might come alive at any moment. Before the statue floated a dancing ball of golden flame. It radiated a power that made one's heart tremble, yet carried a sacred summons. Nirvana fire. An ancient, majestic voice spoke directly in my mind. Descendant of the An family, step forward and receive the final baptism. I knew the most critical moment had arrived. I stepped forward, reached out my hand, and touched the golden flame. Boom! An indescribable agony instantly engulfed my entire body. It felt as if every inch of flesh and every bone was being scorched, shattered, and reshaped by the flames. I couldn't help but let out a pained groan, nearly collapsing to my knees. Countless images flashed through my mind. The cold despair of being drowned in the river in my past life. Shen Xinrui's smug smile. The indifference of the Su family. The grief-stricken eyes of my adoptive parents. The hopeful gazes of my biological parents. Jiang Jin's warning text. No. I cannot fall. I must survive. I will make all my enemies pay. I will protect everything I hold dear. My powerful conviction sustained me. I gritted my teeth and endured the agony of nirvana. After what seemed like an eternity, the burning pain receded like a tide. An unprecedented warmth, like a sweet spring, flowed through every limb and bone. I felt my body become incredibly light, my 5 senses grow several times sharper, and the inherited memories in my mind finally settle into place. The birthmark on my wrist radiated a dazzling golden light. The true phoenix jade pendant on my chest transformed into a streak of light, merging into my chest and fusing with my heart. I had succeeded. Before the stone wall of the ancestral mansion, Anhongi waited anxiously. Suddenly, the phoenix statue on the stone wall erupted with a towering pillar of golden light. The entire ancestral mansion trembled. Success! The young lady succeeded. Uncle Fu shouted excitedly. Anhongi's face lit up with wild joy. However, at that very moment, ha ha ha. Anhongi, thank you for leading the way and opening this secret realm. A burst of arrogant laughter rang out. Su Qingsong emerged from the shadows with a group of black-clad men, and Anlin. Anlin. So it was you. Anhongi was both shocked and furious. Anlin's face twisted with jealousy and vindictiveness. Uncle, why? Why does she, a bastard child who grew up outside for years, get to inherit the true legacy of the An family? I'm the one who grew up in the An family since childhood. I refuse to accept this. You fool. You're courting disaster by colluding with a predator. Anhongi trembled with rage. Su Qingsong gazed greedily at the stone wall blazing with golden light, the An family's inherited power. Is mine. Attack. At his command, the black-clad men swarmed forward. The An family's loyal guards immediately engaged them. The scene descended into chaos. Although Anhongi was skilled, he was outnumbered, and with Anlin as an insider familiar with the ancestral mansion's layout, he quickly fell at a disadvantage. Just as Su Qingsong was about to break through the defenses and reach the stone wall, boom! The stone wall exploded. The golden light faded. I slowly walked out from the dust and smoke. A faint golden aura surrounded me. My gaze was calm, and the power of the inheritance steadied every movement. Su Qingsong, Anlin, I said coolly, are you looking for me? Everyone was intimidated by my presence and froze in place. Su Qingsong stared at me, his eyes first filled with shock, then replaced by deeper greed. The inheritance power. Hand over the inheritance power. He lunged at me like a madman, a dagger radiating black energy appearing in his hand out of nowhere. The dagger carried a thick, filthy curse aura, clearly a sinister tool specifically designed to counter practitioners of the mystic arts. If it had been the old me, I might not have been able to withstand it. But now. I raised my hand, not even using any complex technique. Just a single thought. The birthmark on my wrist flashed with golden light. A phoenix phantom, formed purely of golden flames, spread its wings and soared into the sky behind me. Cry. A clear, piercing phoenix call echoed through the heavens. The phoenix phantom, bearing the sacred power to purify all evil, swooped down at Su Qingsong. No. The black dagger in Su Qingsong's hand dissolved instantly. He was engulfed by the golden flames, letting out a blood-curdling scream. Like a lit candle, he rapidly charred, shriveled, and finally turned into a pile of ashes. His soul scattered to the winds. And Lin collapsed to the ground in terror. Don't kill me. And Jean, I'm your cousin. It was all Su Qingsong's doing, he forced me. I looked at her coldly. The Yin family has no place for traitors. A wisp of golden flame separated from the phoenix and dissolved the curse-bound power Lin had accepted from Su Qingsong. It left her physically unharmed but unable to use the mystic arts. The family guards took her and the remaining attackers into custody, along with the records proving their conspiracy. And Hongyi watched it all, his expression complex, finally dissolving into a long sigh. Clean this up, he ordered, then walked up to me, looking at the golden light still faintly radiating around me, his voice trembling with excitement. Good. Good. The Yin family inheritance has finally reappeared in the world. And Jean, you are the true pride of the Yin family. I withdrew my aura, the golden light fading inward. Feeling the surging power within me and the complete, clear inheritance in my mind, I knew that from this moment on, I truly controlled my own destiny. After we returned to Star City, evidence of the Su family's fraud and violence reached the authorities. Their companies entered court-supervised receivership, and the people responsible were charged. Yun Shu entered long-term psychiatric care after a breakdown. The influence the Su family had abused was gone. With my help, the Yin family purged all internal instability and solidified its position even further. I officially became the undisputed heir of the next generation of the Yin family. I kept that little grocery store, occasionally returning to visit my adoptive parents, sitting inside and savoring the ordinariness of the past. At school, I was still the center of attention, but no one dared to provoke me anymore. The scandal of the false heiress gradually faded and was replaced by newer gossip. Life seemed to have truly returned to calm. Until one day, I received a phone call. It was from Jiang Jin. His voice was as cold as ever, but carried a hint of barely perceptible awkwardness. And Jean. I helped you twice. So, shouldn't you treat me to a meal? Holding the phone, I looked out at the bright sunshine through the window, and a genuine, relaxed smile slowly curled at the corners of my mouth. Sure. You pick the place.